The NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount Plus all season long. Why Paramount Plus? Stream the NFL on CBS and you can watch your local game live every week and catch featured national games. That includes pivotal afternoon matchups, the Thanksgiving game, and the postseason, all streaming live on Paramount Plus. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to sign up today. Another great season of the NFL on CBS awaits, streaming live on Paramount Plus.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of the Bruin Bible. Will Decker, your host. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing the podcast. We are brought to you guys today by our advertisers. Our advertisers are Bell to Bell Fitness, Shea Tor, a realtor out in Arizona, former Bruin alum, and my main man Howard Chang, a realtor right here in Los Angeles. Let's go through them, guys. Bell to Bell Fitness is a boxing gym on the West Coast, used by their FIT acronym, Fight Inspired Training. My main man, Tony Gonzalez, was the boxing coach for UCLA for over 10 years. He has built this gym on the West Side to learn how to boxing, stay in shape, and get you all the essentials you need to become somebody that is obsessed with boxing and fitness. Make sure to check it out. Go into Bell to Bell Fitness and say you heard about it from the Bruin Bible, and you're going to get a free session with Tony Gonzalez. So make sure to check that out. Shea Tor, my main man. Shea Tor is a licensed real estate agent in Arizona and a lifelong Bruin. He's a current Wooden Athletic Fund donor and football season ticket holder. When not selling houses or going to UCLA games, he loves to travel the country, checking out different arenas, ballparks, and stadiums. If you're looking to make the move to Arizona or know someone who is, please reach out to our loyal friend, Mr. Shea Tor. His phone number is 602-487-3975. Once again, his number is 602-487-3975. Make sure to check that out. And then the local realtor we got out here, Howard Chang. Howard Chang is a local realtor with the Serene team at eXp Realty. Their team has an office right here in Culver City, though they help clients buy and sell homes all over the LA County and the surrounding areas. Howard and his team do a ton of business and are super in tune with the market, knowing winning strategies to give their clients a competitive advantage, have amazing vendor referrals, are a one-stop shop for anything real estate, and just provide a ton of value for their clients. Howard and his partner, Kyle Draper, are UCLA alums and a huge fans of the UCLA football and basketball programs. You often see them at games, tailgating and networking and staying involved with the UCLA alumni community. They would love to help any fellow alumni with accomplishing their real estate goals. So if you guys have any real estate needs in the LA area, look no further. Howard is your guy. All right, guys, we're going to go into the episode. What is up, and welcome to the latest edition of the Bruin Bible. Will Decker, your host, joined by the man, the myth, the legend, my favorite Mr. Madman to my right. It's game week once again. We had a bye week. We got football. We waited so long in the offseason. We had it for a smidget of a second. Then we get a bye week, and now it's back again. So thank the Lord we have football on this Saturday. How are we doing on this Tuesday evening leading into game week for our UCLA Bruins, Madman?
No, Thriller, great to see you as always. And it's so fun that we're going live. I think it's something that we want to do more of over the course of the season, engage with our beautiful Bruin family and our viewers. You know, this is what makes this so fun. The community, the engagement, and us all feeling like we're in this together. So really excited about this evening, Will, and it's always such a great joy to be able to do this with you. And we got game week. It feels like it's been forever since Hawaii, and now we get another game on the schedule. A bit of a step function jump, Will, if you would agree with me, before another massive step function jump the following week in terms of schedule. So excited to really get into it and excited to get a really nice data point about this team in this particular matchup.
Yeah, shout out to my man Rudy saying, thank the Lord for LAFB. Thank the Lord for you guys for tuning in, man. We love everyone that tunes into these shows. You guys make this possible for us.
Totally.
We are eternally grateful for you guys. This is a big game for a couple of reasons. We're home underdogs in this game. The Indiana Hoosiers are 3-point favorites. It's the inaugural game of UCLA's Big Ten, membership, playing a fellow Big Ten opponent in the Indiana Hoosiers, who are 2-0 coming into this game. How did it hit you this week when you saw the line? It's progressively gotten a little bit worse each and every day as it's moving to 3-point favorites for the Hoosiers. What are your initial thoughts on the line? Because, I know we underwhelmed against Hawaii in a lot of ways, but there's still a lot of talent on this team. I thought the defense played incredibly well against a high explosive offense in Hawaii. Talk to me about your thoughts about us being, the underdog at home at the Rose Bowl, man. It's pretty nuts.
Will, I'll be honest with you. My initial reaction was, a gut to the punch a little bit when I saw that. I thought it was somewhat disrespectful as an initial impression, just given the level of talent that UCLA brings back and what the expectations are in terms of this particular season and in terms of what were attainable games and what were some tougher games. And I think you and I both agreed that we thought Hawaii and Indiana were two attainable games before this schedule really revved up. But when you take sort of the emotion aside of it and you sort of look at things pragmatically, I think there's a lot to prove for the Bruins of UCLA. We were 14.5-point favorites against the Rainbow Warriors of Hawaii. We don't need to sort of rehash that. Unfortunately, we were shut out in the first half. Great effort by the defense to keep us in that game and ultimately win 16-13. But then when you look across the aisle, so to speak, with those Indiana Hoosiers, granted, very light competition to start this season. But when you look at not just the 2-0, but the way they have achieved 2-0, Will, they have outscored their opponents 108-10 in 2 games. So, job well done for Indiana in terms of they played inferior competition, but they really played in a very significant way, coming off a 77-3 victory last week, where, Will, there was the first time in school history they crossed 700 yards of offense. They had over 300 passing. They had over 300 rushing. They scored on their first 6 drives, all touchdowns at 42 after 6 possessions. So this is a team that's feeling really good about themselves. And if you just look at it pragmatically, mathematically, it pains me to say this, but if you just look at evidence and resume and body of work on the field for the 2024 season, it does make some sense why Indiana is so respected by the odds makers.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, man. And you look at what that high-powered offense has done. You mentioned 108-10. They're averaging 6.4 yards a carry and 16.5 yards a catch. They are moving the football at will on that offense, over 700 yards of total offense against Western Illinois. Yes, I know it's Western Illinois, a team that's lost 26 straight games. They haven't won a football game since, I think, the 2021 campaign. But they did what UCLA didn't do in week 1. They, went out and destroyed an opponent that they should have. We kind of lost the benefit of the doubt, not only among the fan base in some ways, but with, the people that are the odds makers. With this minus, a 3-point favorite for Indiana in a lot of ways. And, they're going to have to prove it. We cover UCLA. This is a team that, we think can be very, very solid. 6, 7, 8 wins is still very much on the horizon. But they also need to prove it now. Like, all the talk's over from the offseason. We know it's, Deshaun's first year. They got to come out there and step up. And, they're going against a really good coach. I really want to dive in to Curt Cignetti, an offensive-minded coach. This guy is very, very impressive, Madman. He's won at every level he's been at. He was at Elon, and then he went to James Madison. So he was a part of the football championship subdivision, also known as the FCS. He went 33-5 over his 3 years with James Madison from 2019 to 2021. He went to the semifinals of the FCS every single year, including one appearance in the championship game. They ultimately lost. And then they get the big bump up to Division I. They're playing the Sun Belt. Like, this is a competent division. You guys may remember South Alabama coming in to the Rose Bowl a couple of years ago against Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Zach Charbonnet and nearly beating us on our own home turf. That's a Sun Belt opponent. He went 19-4 in 2 years after making a big-time jump up from the FCS to legitimate Division I competition, including 11-1 last year, also going to the Armed Forces Bowl. He was one of the hot coaching candidates when it came to the offseason. He gets his first real big-time job in Indiana. It was kind of cool. We were at Big Ten Media Day, and we went to the famous steakhouse, St. Elmo's, down there. And Curt Cignetti and his Indiana team was sitting at the table right next to us. It was a really cool kind of moment. We kind of gave him a nod and, said what up to him. But that's just kind of the cool vibes of the Big Ten Media Day. If you guys have not been out to Indianapolis for that, it's one of the coolest events in college sports. But long story short, Cignetti is a stud, man, and I came away very impressed What are your thoughts on Curt Cignetti and, how much of a good coach this guy potentially is?
No, Will, you said it so well in terms of setting the stage. You know who he kind of reminds me of, Cignetti, in terms of just career trajectory, career arc a bit, is Urban Meyer. I mean, let's not forget, with Urban Meyer was 22-2 at Utah. Prior to that was 20-4 at Bowling Green. I mean, essentially won 80% of all his games before he got the big job. And Cignetti is headed sort of in that direction. Elon, James Madison, Indiana. And you feel like if he's successful over a 2 or a 3 year period here at Indiana, some big Power 4 job is going to become calling for Cignetti. He's a tactician, Will. This is a guy who's very cerebral. He understands scheme. He's very offensive minded. He likes to predicate his offense on balance, and he likes to predicate his offense on winning particular matchups. And I think what I really enjoy about his coaching philosophy over the last couple of years, watching James Madison and going up against the North Dakota States of the world, and others in a highly competitive FCS, is he knows how to adjust his scheme to his personnel. So many times coaches come in and say, I have a certain way I approach the game. I have a certain way I win, and players have to adapt to me. Whether I'm more pass-oriented or run-oriented or offensive or defensive, the players have to adapt to me. That's why usually it takes a coach a year or two. Everyone says kind of that famed year 3, because you are invoking your system, your style of play, and you're finally getting the players that adopt to your system. But the truly great coaches, the Sabans of the world, the Urbans of the world, other guys, we talked about, Harbaugh in terms of his ability to win at every spot. Those guys have a knack of being able to adjust their scheme based on their personnel and still win. And that's a very rare skill, Will, and Cignetti has that. And I think that we've sort of seen that. We don't want to get too carried away given that the schedule was light. But gosh, you can't look more impressive than they have from a balance perspective, in terms of quarterback completions, in terms of protection, in terms of how they're running from a zone scheme perspective. They got 2 really big receivers that I know we'll get into. I mean, There's just a lot to like on this roster. And UCLA, I think, needs to approach this game with a chip on their shoulder, saying, you know what, this is disrespectful. We are a preeminent Big Ten program. This is our home opener. This is our Big Ten christening. And we are 3-point underdogs at home in the famed Rose Bowl. And I want to see an edge from the Bruins. They've had 2 weeks to kind of stew over the Hawaii performance. And then when you combine that with being home underdogs, I am expecting really an A game out of the Bruins on both sides of the ball. Because guess what, Will? They're going to need it with Cignetti and company, because they're coming in with a ton of confidence and a ton of belief.
Yeah, and I think it's considerably more impressive when you look at how many players exited the program and how many players entered the program. 39 players transferred out and 31 players transferred in.
Yep.
He was able to get 13 from James Madison, but I think that kind of adds to the impressiveness, where it's like there's been so much overturn, new scheme, new system. We talked to Ethan Garbers and J Mike in Indy this summer about learning a new offense. They were telling me how complicated it was. You've got a whole new program, and just the fact that they've outscored opponents 108-10 through 2 games with a whole new learning curve, whole new personnel, whole new coaching staff. I think it was incredibly impressive. So you cannot take this game lightly. I know the odds makers are not taking it lightly, but let's dive into the offense a little bit. Curtis Rourke is the quarterback for Indiana. He started off hot, man. He's completing close to 70% of his passes, 448 yards and 3 touchdowns and no scores. This guy was a transfer of the MAC. He came from the Ohio Bobcats. And I think the one credit I can give Curtis Rourke is he's not going to lose you any games, man. He doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot. His best year was in 2022, about 2 years ago. 25 scores, 70% completion rate to only 4 interceptions. So, this guy is smart with the football. He makes good decisions out there, and he does his job at a high level. And he's going to be throwing the rock, to some really, really talented receivers, man. Elijah Surratt's the first guy I want to talk about, a notable player that followed, Curt Cignetti to Indiana from James Madison, had 80-plus catches last year, for James Madison, 1,000-plus yard receiver. And then you get also just the 8 touchdowns that he was able to provide. He's outstanding. The running back room that they have is outstanding as well. I mean, we're looking at 3 tailbacks, Madman, that have had over 10 carries or averaging close to 10 yards a carry at the same time. Justice Ellison, Tyson Lawton, and Elijah Green. Talk to me about the offensive playmakers, because this offense looks loaded, to start off the season, brother.
No question, Will. And you said it best about, and I'll channel my inner Chris Berman, Curtis, my favorite Rourke, in terms of his nickname. And, he's your classic, Will, tough kid, seasoned kid out of the MAC, where you said it best. He's a game manager. He's not going to make those mistakes, and he's not going to be intimidated by the audience, the setting that he's playing in against UCLA in the famed Rose Bowl. And I think the key for Rourke and the key for Cignetti is going to be to stay ahead of schedule, to stay ahead of the chains. I think that's what they've done very successfully over the first 2 games. And once you sort of get into that rhythm where the short throw is available to you, and then you've got all levels of the defense available to you from a running perspective as well as from a passing perspective, that's when you can sort of pepper it around. And I think he's got this deep connection with Surratt back to James Madison. Both Surratt as well as Omar Cooper Jr., they're their top 2 receivers. Well, both guys are right around 150 yards. Both have gotten scores from a receiving capacity. And both guys are built kind of similarly. Will, these are guys that are kind of 6 feet to 6'2", 210. So there's some meat on the bone there. Those are some guys that can go across the middle, that can absorb some contact, but still are athletic enough to be threats on the outside. And so what that means for UCLA is, we talk so much, Will, our favorite room in the roster. This is going to be a significant test for the secondary. We've been waiting for the likes of Davies and Kirkwood. KJ Wallace had a terrific game against Hawaii, but how this collective plays, particularly against these 2 receivers, I think is going to be critical. And then you got to love what you see in the backfield. A lot of guys got touches because they were in 2 blowouts, but their lead back really, Will, to your point, is Justice Ellison, 5'9", 205. He's kind of built like Maurice Jones-Drew, actually. He's lower to the ground, low center of gravity, but he's thick. And so, there's some explosiveness there. There's an ability to bounce off tackles there. So it's going to be of vital importance for UCLA to be able to wrap and finish those tackles. And so I think the likes of Toia, Keanu Williams, clogging that middle, forcing Ellison to kind of go to the outside. And that's where we want to see the likes of Femi and Kane Madrano really kind of be sideline to sideline to sort of bottle up that running game, Will. So I'm kind of looking, I know we'll get into it much deeper, but that secondary in particular is going to need to play a big role. And I think we're going to need to get a significant amount of pass rush to be able to get Indiana off schedule. Because if they're consistently in 2nd and 7, 3rd and 4, 2nd and 6, 3rd and 3, that's when a guy like Rourke has everything available to him. He continues to be a game manager. He can continue to have his running backs involved in terms of the passing game as well, and you're not providing any resistance. How Rourke plays will, behind the chains, 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13, 3rd and 8, that is what ultimately I think is going to come down to this game. How many of those plays can UCLA's defense force in terms of having Indiana off schedule? Because they're a very rhythmic offense. Cignetti sort of reminds me, I mentioned about Urban Meyer, but they're very much in that sort of West Coast offense type of flow. Will, your favorite team, of course, the San Francisco 49ers, there's sort of a Purdy-esque element to him in terms of managing the game, staying on schedule, staying with rhythm. So how UCLA can break that rhythm is ultimately, I think, going to be a big decider in terms of the outcome.
Yeah, man. And you got to remember, now Alabama head coach, former Washington head coach, Kalen DeBoer was the OC for Indiana under Tom Allen. So, yes. He is very similar in the sense where at every level, you just are impressed off the rip and what he brings to the table with Cignetti. Also, you brought up Maurice Jones-Drew. I know we talked about this last week. If anyone has not seen the clip, he is playing at his dad's high school alma mater in the Bay Area, my neck of the woods. He's at De La Salle High School, legendary football program up north. And, guys, he breaks off like a 70-yard touchdown run. True freshman.
He looks like his dad. He runs like his dad.
Man. Go look it up. Maurice Jones-Drew's son is going to be a stud out there. And you also referenced the defensive line and how they bring, what UCLA brings to the table on that front. Indiana's been good. And we also have referenced the competition hasn't been ideal. It hasn't been Texas or Michigan or one of these big name schools, but 10 sacks through 3 games. Mikhail Kamara has 3 of those 10 sacks. That's a guy you got to account for, with the offensive line and the issues that we've had thus far. So you got to account for what's on the offensive line. Now let's talk about our Bruins, man. I want to get into it. Let's talk about some players that need to stand out. If we are going to take this game at home, move to 2-0, put ourselves in position to get to that bowl game. I think this is a must-win game if we're going to go bowling this year against the Indiana Hoosiers. Madman, I'm going to give you the first pick in this draft. We're going to do 3 for 3. Just give me 3 players you would like to stand out for UCLA this coming Saturday. Who do you got for me on the first pick, brother?
Well, obviously we got some household names, right? And I won't, I won't go easy and pick some of those guys. Obviously, Garbs is the leader on the offense and Medrano's the leader on the defense. And, they're stalwarts. We're expecting them to separate. Will, I think this is a game for Busic. I think, an opportunity to establish the edge. That has been kind of the mixed bag. I know fans, and we've had a nice debate, over the internet or social media elsewhere. Hey, UCLA, multiple sacks, right? In the first game, really kind of disrupted some things in the second half. But what I saw was a team, Will, that required bringing 5, that required bringing 6, that sometimes required bringing 7 to be able to generate that pass rush and generate that pressure. And so for me, the key here is going to be, if you want to be able to get Indiana off schedule, you're going to have to bring some heat on Rourke with 4. And look, you've got this Justice Ellison that we talked about, kind of a live wire, low to the ground kind of guy. So the interior of that line is going to step up and do their thing. But Busic is going to have to step up and set that edge, Will. You can't let Ellison kind of get to the outside on the run where you're straining your 2 elite linebackers so much play over play. And second, you got to be able to give Rourke some heat. So I'm really looking for Jacob Busic to kind of step up and really solidify one of those edge spots, Will. I think both edge spots right now are kind of up in the air a bit. We've been doing it by committee. Medrano's been sliding down, a lot of other variations. We've been using kind of some variety, some deception. We've brought KJ Wallace down on some corner blitzes. But I want to see just a good old-fashioned edge setting from Jacob Busic to be able to set the tone and be able to try and get Indiana off schedule. So I'm going Busic number 1.
Yeah, I like the call with Busic. I think it's time we start exploring just with how deep this linebacking room is, with your Ollie Chaos coming back, your John Vaughn's coming back, with K. Medrano. We saw in spring, Femi played some edge work, when it came out there. It may be time to start exploring those options of maybe moving him full-time to edge just for the benefit of the team. He's built like a, outstanding, edge rusher with physical traits you just can't teach. I think we got to explore that option. So I agree with you wholeheartedly on the edge work. I've got a surprising pick for number 1, but if you know how much we talked about him in the spring sessions, in the fall sessions, I think you guys won't be shocked. Titus Mokiawa Timalala, man. This was the name that we were raving about in spring football. We saw in the fall practice, man, when he had like 5 targets and 4 of them were touchdown catches within the red zone. This has been Ethan Garber's security blanket. And I think that first half, what contributed to a lot of his struggles was not being able to find his balance and his rhythm at the quarterback position. What calms down a quarterback like that is having his security blanket open and making plays. And I think Titus can allow him to give that sense of security where Garbers can at least just deeply exhale and make plays. 2 catches, 29 yards. I think he had 5 or 6 targets. They just could not find a way to get him the football. If Titus can, get out there initially and cause the separation that we saw where no DB in spring football, we're talking about legit studs out there. Your Kayvon Wallace's, your Jalen Davies could not, put a body on this guy. This guy was slimmering, just shimmering his way out of everything, man. Get the ball to Titus and make plays. What do you think about Titus as the first pick for my side of things?
Oh, I love it, Will. And TMA, and, we've just seen it. I mean, we just saw this connection. I mean, it was just unbelievable between Garbers and TMA. Obviously, Will, you were the first to break this on LAFBnetwork.com, of course, in just how Garber's eyes sort of lit up at Big Ten Media Day when talking about TMA, when, we were sort of discussing, hey, who's somebody that really stands out to you? Who kind of means the most to you in this offense? And just the eyes lit up for TMA. And we saw that connection, Will. We really saw it in fall camp before the season started. I mean, the connection was so deep that UCLA's leading receiver, Logan Loya, is wide receiver number 4 right now. And so when you feel like you almost have to press the reset button, and I think Garber's had a phenomenal second half, but I think he would acknowledge that first half, he said after the game, I was pressing. I was trying to do too much. We needed to just kind of get back to the basics and just get back to what we learned in spring and fall camp. And what did he learn in fall camp? That was to get the ball to TMA. So I think that's a phenomenal pick, Will. And when you want to sort of reestablish, I almost sort of look at this, Will, as a second chance at a season opener. I think UCLA can kind of, it was a game in Hawaii. It's almost like a preseason bowl game, if you will. There's been 2 weeks off since. Now you're going week after week for the foreseeable future. This, in many ways, feels like another season opener opportunity. I think Garbers is going to play much more within himself, and that's going to mean going to habits that he really likes and enjoys, and TMA's at the top of the list. So phenomenal pick.
Yeah, it feels like the preseason bowl games. You remember in the NFL too, like they used to go over to like Japan on the opening week because they just went down to Brazil this past week for the opener. I love those preseason just extra storylines. It makes it pretty exciting to watch that. I hope they do more international games. I know that was a side tangent, but this is your second pick when it comes to the Bruin Bible. Talk to me, brother. Who is going to make an impact on Saturday for UCLA if they're going to come out with the dub?
Yeah, Will, and so for me, I think we're looking for a little bit of an X factor. I think that there's a pretty clear sense of what Garbers needs to do. We know we're more of a pass-heavy team than in years past with Chip Kelly. We know that sweet spot is probably 60-40 in terms of pass over run. You don't want to sort of over-rotate too much, which was the case in the first half against Hawaii. It was 19-7 throw over run. That second half was 19-13. And that really sort of helped calm and solidify UCLA. But I think we're looking for a little bit of verticality and explosiveness, even out of the backfield, in terms of creating some matchups. And I'm looking for Keegan Jones. It feels like this is the game, home opener. That 2 years ago, Will, remember those famous plays that we loved? This to sort of level up Keegan Jones with a linebacker, throw it over to him in the flat and let him outrun the competition. We saw it at Oregon. We saw it at Arizona State. We saw it at home in critical moments last year against Washington State. This is the game to me where how do we incorporate Keegan Jones as a receiver as well as a runner? Because right now, particularly if we look at the state of this offensive line, it was banged up leaving Hawaii. Obviously, you're sort of healing up and resting up, but there are questions. There are questions about who we got over the course of the spring. We lost a lot, and who are these reinforcements? As this offensive line is trying to sort of establish itself and solidify itself, the best way to do that is to be able to use an opponent's pressure against them. And the best way you can do that is with misdirection, with screens, with bubble screens, swing passes, and being able to get guys in space when a defense is overcommitted. And to me, that is Keegan Jones, Will. So I'm really looking for kind of a 10-touch game for Keegan. Is it 6 runs, 4 receptions type of game where he can kind of break some things open that then allows that trio, that quartet of receivers to really get involved?
I love the pick, man. Keegan, we kind of had him slotted for a Bieniemy offense as the guy. And maybe with how stagnant the run game was in week 1, maybe they make an initial change to say, hey, Keegan's our guy moving forward. He just works with the offense better. So maybe that is a conversation that they're having this week leading up to game play. I like the pick a lot, man. Keegan was on my short list. The guy I got for you, and as we've talked about at length, the Big Ten is trench work. It is, you have to get out there. You have to make plays on the offensive line and defensive line for that matter. I think the guy that needs to have a monster game for UCLA if they're going to come out victorious is the guy that put one foot out and then put one foot back in the NIL, Jay Toia. And I'll tell you why, man. Toia is one of the most hyped players we've had the defensive tackle position in quite a while. It was rumored that he went for well over six figures to come back to UCLA as we pried him back from a Texas team that looks like it might be competing for the national championship. This guy can play. But in order for us to win this game, Madman, Indiana's rushing attack has been so outstanding in the first two games. Granted, we talked about the opponents and, not being top-notch, but here's what they've done in two games, Madman. 87 carries as a team for 557 yards, averaging 6.4 yards a clip, and 10 touchdowns in two games on the ground. That is an explosive run game, and their run game dictates what they can do in the passing game. All great run games open up the play action and allows them to make big plays. So if we're going to stop this run game, get them off the field in 3 downs, force a punt-like situation, make big plays. And we talked about all those, outstanding linebackers we have, whether it's Medrano, whether it's Femi, whether it's Vaughns, whether it's Kao, who we never thought we could see again, maybe in a UCLA uniform balling out. It all starts with what the 4 guys do at the front, and Jay Toia, if he can open up some of those lanes for these linebackers to come through and make plays, UCLA is going to come out victorious in this game. What do you think about Toia with the second pick?
No, Will, I mean, no truer words have ever been said by you. It's just a phenomenal take, because here's the thing. This game, and this may be foreshadowing to my last pick, but we love our linebackers. But given the way Indiana is constructed in terms of kind of this West Coast look, this game defensively for UCLA is going to be one on the first level and on the third level. It's going to be up front and on the back end. That's where Indiana has been exploiting their damage. The linebackers, kind of that middle level, are going to be used as supplements if UCLA is struggling in run defense or struggling to get a pass rush, or they're going to play further back to sort of contain a deeper passing game. But they're going to be more in sort of containment and supplement mode here. The key is going to be on that first level and on that third level. And when you are still trying to find a decorated edge rusher, what's the best way to have great pass rush? Is have a guy clog up the middle with a double team with 3 guys focused on him. And then that's when all of a sudden it becomes very easy for an edge rusher. That's when it becomes very easy for a linebacker to slide down, find an opening, go on a delayed blitz. That's when it's very easy for a corner to show bump and run coverage and then dive to the quarterback on a corner blitz. So everything sort of starts with Toia. Will, I'm so happy you bring him up, because the defensive tackle position in football, the NFL, college football, in many ways, it's the hockey assist, right? It's the assist before the assist. And so many times the defensive tackle doesn't get that final TFL or that final sack or that final sort of statistical big play, but they're the ones that have created the entire opportunity for those things to take place. And in the case of Jay Toia, that couldn't be further from the truth. And if you look at any one player on this defensive side of the ball that commands a double team, it's Jay Toia. And so I think if he can sort of establish a presence that, look, one guy's not going to be able to cover me, that just opens up so many other things defensively to slow this running game down and just get this team off schedule. So Toia is going to be huge for us on Saturday, expecting big things from him in terms of disruption standpoint. And you said it spot on.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, that's a pick that I just think Jay Toia needs to be a guy that's going to be a wrecking ball when he's out there for UCLA to have a shot in this game. Third and final pick of this grouping, Madman. Talk to me, brother. What do we got?
Thriller, I may have tipped my hand a bit, in terms of kind of the previous statement, but, I'm going to have to go with somebody on the back end in the secondary. This is a game that's going to be played on the first level and the third level. And I was contemplating, and, I love Davies and I love his ball skills. But I think this is a game where, and he could very well come up with a pick in this game that could make a big difference. But you need someone that's going to be a bit of a disruptor, that's going to sort of disrupt more than just one play, intercept one pass, really disrupt the timing of this offense. This team is so predicated on timing that you want to be able to kind of get in there, make some deflections, get physical, get up in guys' faces a bit, and really sort of establish that receivers are not going to be able to get to their route tree in a very easy fashion. And so to me, the guy who's got the size and all the tools in the toolbox to be able to do that, and we've been waiting. we've been aching, we've been itching, we've been dying, to see it all sort of come together for a few years because he's got all the tools, is Devin Kirkwood. I mean, this is sort of the moment for me with Kirkwood, Will, where this is his opportunity. In the words of Eminem, you have one shot, one opportunity to seize everything you want. Are you going to capture? You're going to let it slip. And I feel like this is now the moment for Devin Kirkwood to sort of capture this moment and really seize the back end of this secondary and be the star on that back end. We've got a star in Toye on the line. We've got a star on the second level in Kane Medrano. Who's going to be that star on that last level? I think we all believe, just from a tools perspective and an athleticism perspective, it's Devin Kirkwood. And I want to see him kind of get into Surratt, get into Cooper Jr., really take one or more of those guys out of this game in terms of just his technique and his ability to get inside guys and really disrupt that passing game. So I'm looking for Mr. Kirkwood to come out. I want to see the guy that picked off Caleb. I want to see the guy that had the interception at Washington 2 years ago. Will the real Mr. Devin Kirkwood please stand up?
Love the Eminem references, bro. This is great. And it's kind of like, I follow wrestling from time to time. It's the John Cena. The time is now, man. The time is now. We need you, Kirkwood, out there making plays, balling out. I love the pick, man. Kirkwood, we have been patiently waiting for him to explode. He looks like, the profile is Richard Sherman-esque, like the way he's built and how he can tackle in the open field. It's time for us to see that. And, with the last pick on this, Madman, before we go into our game predictions, I'm going to cheat here a little bit because I want to talk about, the offensive line had its issues, and we could get into that. I could talk about Garbers, struggling the first half. I'm not going to get on those, that position group in the quarterback. I'm actually going to get on their coaches. I'm looking at Juan Castillo.
Wow.
You've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. You had an extra week to prepare for your first Big Ten, your inaugural Big Ten opponent. Get that line oiled up and ready to go, man. We are excited to see that. Eric Bieniemy, we were 4 of 13 on third down conversions in game number 1 against Hawaii. I want to see it, bro. Like, we've heard all this talk. The plays were pretty predictable. 38 passes to only 20 rushes. I need to see more balance there. I need to see us flowing as an offense. I didn't see any of that when it was going at full tilt against Hawaii in Honolulu. So instead of picking 2 different players, I'm going to pick 2 different positional coaches. It's on you guys. It's on Bieniemy and Castillo how this team turns out, because I have faith if Garbers has time and can make the right reads, he's going to be a solid quarterback within the Big Ten. I'm worried about the offensive line, but Castillo, you guys both worked with Andy Reid, man. Let's see it. This is a big-time performance. It's now the talking stops and the performance has to show. I got Castillo, and I've got Eric Bieniemy with the final 2 picks. What do you think about that, man?
Phenomenal, Will. Throwing that curveball a la Barry Zito, circa 2002. I love it. That's phenomenal. I think, Will, you said it so well with Castillo, because the key here is, and we're not going to keep kind of, necessarily beating the dead horse, if you will, but we need to see improvement. We need to see that upward trajectory. We've talked so much about that journey of 2022, where this team was against Bowling Green versus where they were at the end of the year. It was sort of 2 completely different units. And so, how does the likes of Holstage and DiGiorgio, and Carlin really galvanize this group and really sort of take things over? What we really want to see is improvement, because that's going to give us a lot of confidence going into the gauntlet of our schedule, which is the following 3 games. Will, the LSU, Oregon, Penn State situation. So if we see a similar performance like we did against Hawaii, and then you have a short week going up against those 3 great teams, starting with LSU, that's going to be deeply problematic. So I completely agree with you. We also want to see some of our spring transfers, I think, kind of get more comfortable with the scheme, with their technique, with their physicality, with their tenacity. I think we're just looking for a meaner, nastier offensive line. And I'll be honest with you, Will, I will gladly trade a couple of penalties for more physical play. Even if there's a couple of holding penalties along the way, I think you make that trade in the long run. But when you want to see, sort of physicality on the offensive line, And then I absolutely loved your pick with Bieniemy. Look, Bieniemy is the guy, okay, offensively. This guy is the CEO of this offense, okay? Deshaun Foster is the CEO of the team, but the offense runs through Eric Bieniemy. And so I think it's going to be very interesting. And I think Martin, brings up a great point here, even in terms of the play calling. Look, you got to know who you are. You got all these weapons that we're talking about. You can't be conservative on the plus side of the field. 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. You got to push the pedal to the metal there. And I think we need to be able to see more play action. I think we need to see Garbers roll out of the pocket a little bit more to sort of move the pocket when the offensive line is struggling and kind of keep the defense on their toes. And I think there's really sort of an opportunity to do a lot of things with eye manipulation and line of scrimmage manipulation, even in lieu of necessarily, because, Will, sometimes you don't have to go 50-50 pass run to keep a defense off balance. You can still go 60-40, but in that 60, if you're doing different things, you're manipulating the defense with your eyes differently. You're moving the line of scrimmage. You're moving the pocket. It's almost like a pseudo run game because the purpose of the run is to sort of set up the throw in the Bieniemy offense. So we want to see that creativity, the tutelage under Andy Reid, it all come together in this first Big Ten game. So absolutely the right call.
Yeah, man. And if it is 60-40, just make sure that 40 to 60% is, respectable. It's getting yards on the plays. It's making the defense alter their plans and, changing in motion. So I completely agree with what you were saying there. The finale, man. What is your game prediction for Saturday? 3-point underdogs as we stay.
Totally thriller. I think it's going to be one of these where, look, I think Indiana's coming into this game with a lot of momentum. I think they're feeling really good about themselves offensively in particular. I think there's a bit of a challenge when it comes to now the level of competition that's moving up. And I think UCLA's defense is going to sort of ride the momentum, hopefully, from the second half of Hawaii, but also understand this is a completely different team. I mean, you got to remember, Will, Hawaii, for all the talk about the run and shoot offense, they didn't really throw the ball down the field very much, if you recall, Will. It was a lot of it with the run and shoot is you're getting the ball out very quickly. And so when you're getting the ball out very quickly, it's a lot of kind of 7, 8, 10-yard throws. I think there's going to be more of a verticality and a variety to the Indiana offense that UCLA is going to have to get used to. That's all to say. I think Indiana is going to be able to score some, but I think at home, Garbers, with getting it back to the bread and butter with TMA, getting it back with sort of getting Keegan Jones involved, putting all of that. I think Matavau, is going to be a sneaky good weapon, running some of those seam routes. I think UCLA is going to get off to a much quicker start, feel a lot more comfortable at home. I got the Bruins winning 30-27 in the home opener. We level up 1-1, 1-0 in Big Ten play as we move forward.
I love it, man. I've got a similar prediction. I'm going 34-28. I think it's going to be a close ball game as we head into the fourth quarter. We're going to get some key third down conversions. We're going to flip that narrative from 4 of 13 to around 7 of 15, making it a respectable third down conversion rate. And our guy, man, Mr. Bugatti, Mateen Bagani, going to be kicking 2 game-sealing field goals to get us through the day. I got Bruins 34-28, guys. Make sure you guys are tuning in, man. We're brought to you guys, as always, by Bet Online, by our wonderful sponsors out there. Make sure to check us out, guys. We got a great, great lineup of everything coming for you guys, for UCLA to that school across town who we don't have to name, to the Los Angeles Rams, to the Los Angeles Chargers. A lot of great stuff coming out here, guys. So tune in. Pack the Rose Bowl, guys. Get out there. Be proud. Be loud. It's going to be a lot of fun. You guys have a great rest of your evening. We'll talk to you guys soon. 4s up.